Sometimes the hardest part of rejection isn't the moment it happens. It's the quiet hours that follow, the overthinking, the feeling of not being good enough, the urge to replay everything in your mind as if a different version of you could have changed the outcome. Rejection hits the part of us that wants to be seen, accepted, valued. And when it doesn't happen, it feels like something inside collapses. But what if this pain isn't a sign that something is wrong with you, but that something powerful is waking up? Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to support the journey. Number 1. Rejection is not a measure of your worth. Rejection hurts because you naturally assume it reflects your value. The mind instantly creates stories. I wasn't enough. I failed. I should have been better. But the Stoics remind us that people don't respond to who you are. They respond to their own needs, judgments, moods, expectations, and limitations. What they accept or reject is shaped by their inner world, not yours. When someone says no to you, they're not evaluating your soul. They're simply acting based on their perspective, which you cannot control. You must train yourself to pause before letting your emotions take over. The moment rejection hits, your mind rushes to self-criticism. But this is the moment to practice control. Remind yourself, this reaction is mine. The event is neutral. The emotion is optional. This is the beginning of freedom, separating what happened from the meaning you're giving it. A Stoic understands that no single person's opinion defines them. Your worth is not a fragile object someone else gets to handle. It exists independently, rooted in your character, your effort, your discipline, and your actions. The opinions of others may influence your path, but they should never influence your identity. When you internalize rejection, you let someone else's subjective decision shape your entire self-view. That is giving away too much power. A Stoic keeps their power close. They observe the outcome, accept it with clarity, and refuse to turn rejection into self-sabotage. You do not control the world, but you always control the interpretation. Rejection becomes lighter the moment you stop letting it define you. Instead of thinking, something is wrong with me, shift the thought to, this is simply not aligned with me. That change alone transforms pain into perspective. You don't need approval to be whole. You only need truth. Number 2, rejection is redirection. When something doesn't work out, whether it's a job, a relationship, an opportunity, it's easy to assume you're moving backward. But the Stoics believed life is always guiding you, even through denial. Rejection often protects you from things you weren't meant to carry, people who weren't meant to stay, paths that weren't meant for you. It clears space for something better, something more aligned, something more honest. Every time you face rejection, you're being nudged back onto your real path. It doesn't feel like guidance, it feels like pain. But pain is often the first language of transformation. The Stoics used to say that sometimes the obstacle is the path. Rejection is one of those obstacles that pushes you toward deeper self-awareness and better opportunities, even if you can't see it yet. Think of the times in your past when something didn't work out, but later you realized it was a blessing. Back then, you couldn't understand the reason. But with time, the dots connected. Stoicism invites you to trust that same pattern even now. You don't need to know the whole plan to have faith that the moment is meaningful. When rejection shows up, instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Learn to ask, what is this making room for? This shift transforms frustration into curiosity, pain into clarity. You begin to realize that life isn't taking from you. It is redirecting you towards something better suited for who you are becoming. A Stoic accepts reality as it is, not as they wished it would be. They don't cling to closed doors. They don't collapse when things don't go their way. They simply take the next step with calm confidence, trusting that what is meant to meet them will meet them in its own time. Number 3, mastering your emotional response. Rejection triggers strong emotions, shock, embarrassment, anger, insecurity. But emotions are not commands. They're signals. A Stoic doesn't fight their emotions. They observe them. You must learn to step back from the immediate rush of feelings and see them as passing weather, not permanent identity. When rejection strikes, the worst thing you can do is react instantly. The Stoics practice the discipline of slowing down. Take a deep breath, sit with the discomfort, and let the emotions settle before responding. When you create space, you gain clarity. When you gain clarity, you act from wisdom instead of impulse. Your emotions try to convince you that rejection is the end of something, but often it's the beginning. Pain is the doorway to deeper resilience. Instead of drowning in the emotion, treat it like a teacher. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What insecurity is being exposed? What belief is being challenged? Suddenly, rejection becomes a mirror reflecting your inner world. A Stoic refuses to let temporary emotions shape long-term identity. You are not the sadness you feel. You are not the insecurity that surfaces. You are not the fear that whispers lies in your mind. You are the awareness behind it all, the steady, grounded observer who chooses how to respond. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean pretending rejection doesn't hurt. It means refusing to let the pain decide who you become. You breathe through it, learn from it, and rise above it. That is the true strength of Stoic emotional control. Number 4, taking responsibility without blame. Rejection gives you two choices: blame yourself or take responsibility. Blame is destructive. It weakens you, makes you feel powerless, and traps you in regret. Responsibility is empowering. It helps you grow, understand yourself, and refine your path. The Stoic approach is to drop blame entirely and replace it with honest evaluation. When something doesn't work out, ask yourself what you can improve, not because you're flawed, but because you're evolving. Maybe you needed more preparation, confidence, clarity, discipline, or patience. This mindset doesn't beat you down, it builds you up. It keeps you grounded in reality without drowning you in shame. Taking responsibility means accepting life as it comes, without creating stories that make you feel small. It's recognizing that rejection isn't always personal. Sometimes the timing is wrong. Sometimes the situation is misaligned. Sometimes the other person simply isn't ready. You can't control every variable, and you don't need to. A Stoic knows that progress is built on honest reflection, not guilt. They seek improvement without self-condemnation. When something doesn't go their way, they stay calm, analyze the outcome, and adjust their strategy. No drama, no emotional spiral, just clarity and action. When you respond to rejection with maturity, you turn it into fuel. You stop running from the experience and start using it to sharpen your skills, strengthen your discipline, and deepen your understanding of life. This is how Stoics grow, through acceptance, not avoidance. Number 5, detaching from outcomes and trusting the process. One of the main reasons rejection hurts is because you were attached to a specific outcome. You wanted something to happen, and when it didn't, your expectations collapsed. Stoicism teaches that expectations are the root of emotional suffering. The more you cling, the more you hurt. Detachment isn't about caring less. It's about caring wisely. You must learn to give your best effort while letting go of the result. Your responsibility is to act with intention, discipline, and integrity. The outcome belongs to the world, not to you. When you accept this, rejection loses its power. You stop tying your happiness to unpredictable events. A Stoic enjoys the process more than the reward. They focus on building character, developing resilience, and staying aligned with their values. When you shift your focus from outcomes to growth, rejection becomes less threatening. It becomes just another moment in the journey, not a judgment on your worth. Detachment also teaches you patience. What is meant for you will never require force, desperation, or emotional collapse. When something doesn't happen, it's a sign, not of failure, but of misalignment. Life is protecting you from the wrong path. With time, you'll see the reason clearly. At the heart of Stoicism is trust. Trust that life unfolds exactly as it should. Trust that no closed door can block what is truly meant for you. Trust that you are stronger, wiser, and more capable than your fears suggest. When you carry this trust, rejection becomes small, and your inner peace becomes unshakable. Number 6. Rejection is a test of inner strength. Rejection doesn't expose weakness. It reveals the strength you haven't developed yet. When life denies you something you deeply wanted, it forces you to confront your emotional limits. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it's essential. The Stoics believe that adversity is the gym of the mind, and rejection is one of the heaviest weights you can lift. It pushes you to grow, to expand your resilience, and to discover power within yourself that comfort could never reveal. Instead of asking, "Why is this so painful?" start asking, "What is this trying to build in me?" The moment you make that shift, rejection transforms from an attack into training. This experience is not happening to break you. It's happening to strengthen your capacity to stand tall, even when life shakes the ground beneath your feet. Growth always demands a cost, and emotional strength is forged through emotional tension. A Stoic understands that strength isn't measured by how much you win, but by how you respond when you don't. Anyone can stay calm when everything is going right, but the person who remains grounded and clear-minded when things fall apart, that is the one who truly owns themselves. Rejection becomes a tool for shaping this inner solidity. When you face rejection, you confront the raw edges of your own fears. Fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of being unwanted. These fears lose their power only when you face them repeatedly. Every rejection you endure builds a layer of emotional armor, not to make you cold, but to make you steady. Steady people think better, choose better, and live better. Remember, inner strength is not the absence of pain. It's the ability to walk through pain without losing yourself. Rejection is not a threat when you have learned to rely on your inner stability instead of external approval. That is what the Stoics train for, and that is the strength you can build within yourself. Number 7. Accepting reality without resistance. Most of the suffering that comes from rejection isn't caused by the rejection itself. It's caused by resisting what happened. The mind fights reality because it wanted something else. You replay conversations, imagine alternate outcomes, and cling to what could have been. But all this mental friction only deepens the wound. Stoicism teaches that peace begins the moment you stop arguing with reality. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's acknowledging that what happened cannot unhappen, and choosing not to torture yourself with fantasies of a different past. When you accept fully, the emotional grip loosens. You stop swimming against the current and allow yourself to float with life's natural flow. This simple shift saves you from drowning in unnecessary pain. A Stoic accepts outcomes not because they're always desirable, but because they simply are. They let go of the need to force life into their preferred shape. When rejection happens, they acknowledge it immediately, without denial or resistance. This clear-eyed acceptance allows them to move forward faster than those who cling to disappointment. The power of acceptance also lies in clarity. When you stop resisting, you begin to see the situation as it truly is, not as you wish it were. You notice what you can learn. You notice how the situation aligns, or doesn't, with your purpose. You notice how this moment can refine you. Acceptance clears the fog so wisdom can step in. When you make acceptance a habit, rejection becomes less of an emotional earthquake and more of a gentle shift. You begin to understand that life is not against you, and you don't need to fight every outcome. Peace becomes your foundation, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped demanding perfection from life. Number 8, rising above ego and pride. Rejection often wounds the ego more than the heart. The ego wants to be admired, accepted, chosen, validated. When someone turns you away, It feels like an attack on the image you hold of yourself. But the Stoics taught that ego is the greatest barrier to inner peace. The more you cling to pride and validation, the more painful rejection becomes. To rise above ego, you must first recognize how it reacts. The ego says, "How dare they reject me?" Or "They must not see my worth." But this reaction is not wisdom. It's insecurity dressed as confidence. When you detach from ego, rejection becomes less personal. You start to see the situation objectively, without emotional exaggeration. A Stoic doesn't build their identity around how others respond to them. They build it around character, discipline, honesty, courage, humility. When your identity is grounded in who you are rather than in how people treat you, rejection loses its sting. You remain steady because your worth isn't something that rises and falls with external opinions. Humility is the antidote to ego. It teaches you that rejection doesn't reduce you, just as acceptance doesn't inflate you. You stay level-headed whether things go your way or not. This emotional balance is what keeps you centered. It protects you from overreacting, from chasing validation, and from believing your value depends on approval. When you rise above ego, you free yourself. You stop trying to impress people or win their acceptance. You stop tying your identity to outcomes. You start living with authenticity, not fear. And strangely enough, this detachment makes you more confident. Not because you reject the world, but because rejection no longer shakes you. Number 9, learning to be enough for yourself. The deepest pain in rejection comes from believing someone else completes you, whether it's their approval, their opportunity, or their acceptance. When they reject you, it feels like they've taken something vital away. But the Stoics believe that the greatest freedom comes from needing less from others and relying more on yourself. Being enough for yourself begins with emotional independence. You must learn to stand firmly on your own identity, your own values, your own purpose. When you validate yourself through your actions, your growth, and your integrity, no one's rejection can take away your sense of completeness. You become whole from the inside out. Often, rejection exposes how much of your worth you placed in external hands. This realization can be painful, but it's also liberating. It shows you exactly where to begin rebuilding yourself. Instead of collapsing, you rise. Instead of chasing approval, you strengthen your foundation. You begin cultivating the inner qualities that no one can grant or take away. A Stoic finds confidence through self-respect, not through being chosen. When you trust yourself deeply, no rejection can shake you. You might feel the sting, but you don't crumble. You don't question your entire identity over a single event. You stand firm, knowing that your worth is not a negotiation. Being enough for yourself doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. It means entering the world from a place of strength instead of need. You interact with people, opportunities, and challenges knowing that you are whole, with or without approval. That is one of the highest forms of freedom a human being can achieve. Number 10, moving forward with purpose. Rejection becomes destructive only when you let it stop you. Many people freeze after being denied something. They lose motivation, confidence, and direction. But a Stoic keeps moving. They refuse to let a closed door keep them stuck. Instead, they redirect their energy toward what they can control and what they can build next. Moving forward begins with clarity. You must remind yourself of your purpose, your goals, and your values. These are the anchors that keep you grounded. When the world says no, your purpose reminds you why you keep going. Rejection then becomes just another moment, not a wall. The Stoics believed that action is the cure for emotional paralysis. When you continue taking steps forward, no matter how small, you reclaim control. You shift your focus from what you lost to what you can still create. This proactive mindset prevents rejection from becoming a permanent emotional wound. Moving forward also means embracing patience. Not every opportunity is meant to arrive quickly. Not every door will open when you knock. The Stoic mindset teaches you to trust the timing of your journey. You don't rush. You don't beg. You don't fall apart when something doesn't work immediately. You stay disciplined and consistent. When you walk forward with purpose, rejection becomes a small part of your story, not the defining moment. You grow. You evolve. You continue becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded. And one day, you'll look back and realize that every rejection was preparing you for the life that was truly meant for you.